before I know him, of course. And I know all his siblings. There's an interesting incident, like I think it was about 2018 or sometime. I was back in Guyana for the marriage of one of my nieces. And at the same time, a friend of his eldest brother, who is a medical doctor in Jamaica, had come from Jamaica for the wedding of another friend's son. The guy named is Dr. Rudy Jadupat of New York. Well, I taught Rudy Jadupat at Covent Garden on Beach back in my UG days. And then we were all chatting. You had Dr. Kisoon from Colin, his chacha, I would say, Dr. Yakub. And I was there, we were talking in Diamond. And then his brother said, you know something, I'm looking for a guy named Francis. And I'm standing right next to him. And nobody said anything. But then lo and behold, when he saw me, he said, man, you got me here talking, and I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't say anything back. But anyway, be that as it may, I'm not here to praise the Basir's family. But Enrique knows that I know all his brothers and sisters. And I think almost all of them went through the Anna Regina Secondary School, then into the multilateral school. But anyway, let me leave that aside. When he told me, or he texted me and said, well, he's having this function, and he would like me to say a few words, I said, by all means. I said, not that I really want to say a few words as such, but I feel honored to do it, because I'm a country guy. I grew up in the village of Bushlat on the Essequibo Coast. And I often say it's the best of the three bushlats in Guyana. There's one in West Coast Berbice and there's one in Quarantine. The reason the one in Bushlat is the best, there's no bush there anymore. No. Anyway, that's your opinion, but the fact of the matter is the Essequibo one is the best. And then I lived in cotton field, I last lived around the place, whatever. But very seriously, and I'm not here just to be courteous and nice and say nice things about our Amerindian brothers and sisters, or used to be referred to as indigenous people. I don't like the word indigenous because it tends to reflect a little bit, I don't want to say backwardness, but it's like going back too much in time. Give them their due recognition, even if you don't want to call them American Indians, right? I went to school with some of them, I lived among them, I worked with them, and I've seen them, and they have been a most industrious type of people. Very simple, very humble. I come from a rice farming background. So when you wanted truly to build what I call the watch house in the back dam, under which they would store the cut paddy, that time we didn't have combines, all was cut by hand. It was crushed by bull. I did that. Joining my relatives. The truly came from the Amerindians. The thing that tied it truly together was a thing you call mukru. I don't know how many of you know it here. Kevin don't know that. He grew up in Canal Number 1. You know about mukru? It was like the kind of thread, but it came from a stem, a long stem that they peeled and so intricately removed and made it thin. And you name it, the Wallaba Post came from Mainstay and Tapakuma and Wayaka. And you can go down the list. And then when you want nice cassava bread and ground provisions, they all came from the Mainstay Lake area. My maternal grandmother, with whom I grew up, we call her Nani, used to sell vegetables and greens. And right next to her was this Amerindian family. On one side would sell the fruit juice from the Mainstay area, and on the opposite next side was an Afro-Guyanese lady from Queenstown. She used to sell mainly dried coconuts. And so we got to leave home at 5 o'clock in the morning. Market was only one day, Saturday. And you knew this lady was coming because her cart wheels never had grease. And so when she was 2 villages south, you could hear this screeching sound. And that was the alarm clock for us to get out of the house. But Amerindians, as I knew them, they were very courteous and respectful and decent people. And a lot of that credit goes to the Christian church. The missionaries that went into those communities not only preached Christianity, but taught them basic courtesies and mannerisms. I'm telling you that because, as I said, I went to school with a few, I taught many, and I worked with quite a few. And so we can give them pride. Now, they produce the things that they made from their straw work, their knee furniture, you can name it. It was all intricately done, and it was more than just a labor of love. Nicely done. But you know what was sad? They were not rewarded, they were not paid, they were heavily underpaid. They were cheated. People would buy their stuff next to nothing because they wouldn't go and fetch it back into. And by the way, they fetch their produce walking on barefoot in the area from Mainstay and Waiaka and Tapakuma. Because I grew up at the time when the Tapakuma project started up. They call it TIPS, not the second phase that Andrika knows. You don't know about the first phase. That was done with Pauling and Company and Sir William Halcrow partners from England. I'm talking about the early 60s. Because I was born in the 40s anyhow. And, you know, we've seen this, we grew up, and one never really gave them that kind of recognition. They were a humble set of people. They were never fronting, they never pushed themselves. They were kept behind. And as a matter of fact, I think even the politicians took advantage of their, I can only use one word, disposition. They were not the fronting type that wanted to be recognized. But like everything else in history, there comes a time when progress naturally streaks its way into, and I don't want to appear partisan, but in 1992, as Andrico mentioned, when the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs was established, I think they were at long last given some legal representation. And up to today, I think it is still going, maybe not to the extent that it needs to go. Amerindian Hospital was built in Georgetown. They decided that X number of scholarships should be given to children into the secondary schools and then post-secondary education. Some even getting scholarships to Cuba and other places, or Eugene. Early this year, I was in Guyana from early April right down to the end of July for almost 4 months. And as someone who had worked at the multilateral school, I visited that school quite a few times in my visit there. And I was happy to see that in Anna Regina, and outside of the school at the multilateral school, there were 2 minibuses that were there to transport children into Mainstay, Waiaka, and Tapakuma. Beautiful buses that bring them out and take them back in. In the days that I went to school, a handful of them, they had to take off their footwear when they reached the high bridge of Anna Regina and walk in, and they would walk out barefooted. And I remember the same thing happened when I was the first headmaster for Charity Secondary. Children came off their little boats and their balloons, and they were those boats barefooted, and when they came out of Charity, then they put on their footwear. It wasn't anything beneath their dignity, but they just had to adapt and suit. And so, I'm happy that they are now becoming fully integrated, but not maybe to the extent they should be, into the mainstream Guyanese culture and way of life. They have done well for themselves, they continue to do well, and it behoves us, especially the 2 main races in Guyana, we can say Indo-Guyanese and Afro-Guyanese. We make up the bulk of the population, let's say 80%. We need to respect them and give them the due courtesy that they deserve. When all is said and done, they are the First Nation in Guyana. I know politically they were given titles to land and to other issues, some industries. I know there is in Mainstay a fishing project going on. And in other places, you know, you want the best apple, you got to go to Waiaka if you want apple. And I'm saying I can talk on and about these things. I bought some craft work for my granddaughters. And she could talk about father, but you forget that I'm a grandfather too. And so I bought things like fans made from these things. I bought neckwears for my two granddaughters. I didn't buy anything for my children. They're big, let them work and buy for themselves. And, we need to recognize them for what they are. At the multilateral school, when Enrique was there, he knew Mr. Milton Fredericks. He's now the captain in that mainstay area. And Milton Fredericks is an outstanding and renowned industrial arts teacher. In fact, he is a retired teacher. He worked in the Bahamas for some while and in there. We came to Canada in 1985 and 86 on CEDA-sponsored program at the University of Manitoba. And I think I was telling Andrew, I met one of the Joachim brothers, the Alfonso brother. I don't know if it was George or Joachim. I don't remember, but I know at one time in Charity, the cricket team from Charity had 9 Alfonsos. A 10th person was Jerry Govaya. He was the wicketkeeper. That's in my high school days. I left high school in '66. And I don't know who was the 11th person. So these folks have done well. I can stand up here and say it for a long time. I respect them, I admire them, and we should continue to make them feel that they're an integral part of the Guyanese culture and the Guyanese way of life. I thank you very much for listening to me. I don't want to go into the 9. I don't like the word tribes either. Tribes to me sounds a little bit derogatory. There were 3 groups that live on the coastline line, and in the hinterland area, there really is 6 main groups that live here. So you read the history books, they may tell you about tribes, but I don't like the word tribe. That's just my feeling. They should say groups. In my days in school, they only tell us 2 words. Arawaks and Karens. They didn't teach us about the other things. Well, as Kevin was saying, they taught us how Patrick made the cow jump over the moon. That's the kind of education we have. But I'm glad that now in social studies in Guyana, there is obvious input of Amerindian heritage and culture. If we don't do it, then who's going to do it? We Guyanese, of course, especially if we were born in Guyana. And if we are of Guyanese parentage or Guyanese ancestry, we got to do it. We can't depend on others to do it. Long gone are the days of the dependency syndrome. We Guyanese like things that come from outside. And I'm happy that Andrea and others have found it possible to arrange this function. Small and simple as it is, there is the good old saying, many are called, but few are chosen. Well, maybe today we are the few. Next year it's going to be bigger. And I want to congratulate, as I said just now, Andrea and others for coming to this idea. And I'm happy. I'm going to repeat what he said. Thanks for all those who have provided this environment. Our dear brother here providing his lovely yard and backyard. And then for all the food and all the drinks and the music and everything else. Nice to see the young ones and parents, especially if you have Guyanese ancestry. Tell the children just a couple of words. They're going to forget everything. I'm going to tell my granddaughters, they were born here, that's a different issue. But they may not understand. But last weekend like now, I was in New York celebrating my son's wedding. He got married to a girl in New York. And last Saturday was the reception. And I did run across two Guyanese of Amerindian heritage at the function. One I never knew, but there it goes. So we see them around, recognize them, go to them. As I said, I wouldn't call them introverts, but they take a back seat. And if they take the back seat, we must move to them. Thank you very much. Congratulations to everyone, and may God bless us all. May Guyana continue to be the paradise we would like it to be. And it behaves all of us here too, to help Guyana in whatever way possible. I know, and I'm not going to list other hours, I'll be going longer again. But whenever we get an opportunity to help our good old Guyans, don't think it's too much to do. Even if it's a word of advice. Andrea and I talk about something. Even if it means to rehabilitate somebody, or just to express a word of thanks and appreciation. Like Clyde, I only know Clyde from the Guyana Consulate. And I'll tell you this, when I go there and I get my life certificate signed, you know what Clyde would do? I'd say, oh, by the way, hold on. He goes and he photocopies them without me asking. That's the kind of thing that makes us proud Zion. Once again, thank you very much, and may God bless us all. Thank you.